What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading. So we are getting into Genesis chapter 32 this time, and most recently we had Jacob leaving Laban, and a whole discussion over whether or not Jacob kind of did it the right way, so to speak. Also, Rachel kind of stole some household idols of Laban's for some reason, and that caused a big fuss. But anyway, let's just get right into this. So, Genesis 32, verse 1. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Okay, so first, when it says, on his way again, he was headed towards Canaan, I believe, towards basically where, he grew up, towards where, his parents lived. Because he had left there to find a wife, but, since he had his own family and kids and needed space and to be able to provide for them, as well as Laban kind of not doing right by him in some ways, he decided to go back to where he grew up. But anyway, I'm going to assume the translation, verses 32, 1 to 32 are numbered 32, 2 to 33 in the Hebrew text. That's something I didn't quite expect to read there. So, there's maybe a verse missing? Oh, no. Okay, so it's just the end of the previous chapter and the beginning of this one is a little bit different in the original Hebrew manuscript. So, yeah. It does make a little bit more sense reading it this way, though, I think. Because otherwise you start the chapter with, when Jacob saw them. Wait, them? Who's them? But anyway, also, Mahanaim means two camps. Because I assume it's referring to God's camp as well as his camp. Anyway, alright, moving on. Enough commentary on that. Verse 3. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir, in the land of Edom. He told them, "Give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I have been living with Uncle Laban, and now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I have sent these messengers to inform my lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me." Okay, so Jacob trying to smooth things over a little bit with Esau, realizing that, Esau probably does not have all fond memories of Jacob. If you remember, before Jacob left, Esau had he basically had plans to kill Jacob once Isaac, their father, died. But now that it's been a while and, Jacob has things that he could possibly, give to Esau, to kind of negotiate peace. He's hoping, things can still work out okay. Let's see. Verse 6. After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, "We met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you, with an army of 400 men." Jacob was terrified at the news. He divided his household, along with the flocks and herds and camels, into 2 groups. He thought, if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. Yeah, so Esau is at least giving the impression that he still means to do Jacob harm. I mean, an army of 400 men, come on. Which would also mean that Esau has gained some significant standing if he can, gather an army of 400 men. Especially seemingly quickly. But anyway, so Jacob's plan apparently is, okay, well, let's split everything up, and maybe if one half of it falls into danger, the other half can get away. That's a loss that I can handle as long as I am able to leave with what's really important and with my life. Anyway, verse 9. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my grandfather Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives, and you promised me I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills 2 large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I am afraid that he is coming to attack me, along with my wives and children. But you promised me I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count." So Jacob's kind of like, all right, I mean, look, you've been good to me. I thank you for all these things that you've given to me, but you told me to do this thing. It seems like maybe I'm not going to be quite so safe as you led me to believe. Can you maybe help it be okay and that I would stay safe, please? Also, the whole 2 large camps thing, I guess that explains the previous Mahanaim name of the place where he was. Anyway, verse 13. Jacob stayed where he was for the night. Then he selected these gifts from his possessions to present to his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He divided these animals into herds and assigned each to different servants. Then he told his servants, "Go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herds." Okay, so it says he selected these to present to his brother Esau. I would assume kind of as gifts. Also, noticing way more female animals than male. I guess that's generally what you would have more of anyway. I mean, if you're using any of the females for, say, milk and the like, I mean, yeah, you can't get that from the males. But, you know, anyway, I just can't say I expected the ratios to be quite so lopsided. Anywho, enough about that. Moving on. Verse 17. He gave these instructions to the men leading the first group. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, "Whose servants are you? Where are you going? Who owns these animals?" You must reply, "They belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift for his master Esau. Look, he is coming right behind us." Okay, so I also find it interesting how Jacob keeps framing himself as a servant and Esau as his master in these situations, even though it was previously stated essentially by God and by other means that Jacob would be the one to rule his brother Esau. But anyway, so he's essentially telling his servants to tell Esau that, yes, these belong to Jacob, your brother, but these are gifts, and Jacob's going to be right behind us. You can talk to him about it. Anyway, verse 19. Jacob gave the same instructions to the second and third herdsmen, and to all who followed behind the herds. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, "Look, your servant Jacob is right behind us." Jacob thought, "I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me." So the gifts were sent on ahead, while Jacob himself spent that night in the camp. Okay. So, not only is he trying to, make it seem like he's being nice and offering these gifts, but it's, I guess, by the, different groups and almost layers, you could say, of gifts or levels or whatever, that, he might kind of, keep Esau going and looking at them because his servants are saying Jacob's right behind them. And then Esau, by seeing all these different levels and groups of gifts, might kind of start to think, wow, this is a lot. Maybe he's not so bad after all. Anyway, so then we get to verse 22. During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. Okay, so he and his immediate family crossed the river, or was it just them that crossed the river, or did everything cross the river, but then also go back the other way? I would think the other possessions stayed on the one side of the river, and then Jacob, his wives and children, just crossed the river after the fact, after all the other stuff had kind of been established. But anyway, then he starts wrestling a man. Verse 25. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. And he replied, "Jacob." Okay, so man is not able to win the wrestling match, so he kind of, cheats-ish by, wounding Jacob. Man wants to go. Jacob's like, no, you have to bless me first. I don't know if that was more of a like, okay, you can go, but I need some acknowledgement that I bested you, or at least was able to, compete very well against you. So anyway, verse 28. So this is the other man speaking. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him, but from now on you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Okay. So, man gives him another name, which Israel translates something to the effect of God fights. I always thought it meant something more akin to just like wrestling with God, not talking so much about God being a fighter himself. So the whole fighting with God and with men, a lot of people take this to mean that, the man in question here was God, or at least kind of like some representative of God. I mean, it's technically not said outright, but I mean, why else would he talk about fighting with God? Anyway, verse 30. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising when Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. So, Peniel, I mean, it says it means face of God. Some translations, or even just different places or different verses that'll mention this place, call it Penuel, but it's just kind of a variant of the same word, because Hebrew doesn't actually really have vowels. So yeah. Anyway, so that's actually it for the chapter. In summary, Jacob is about to go back home. He tries to smooth things over with Esau, at first by just sending a message, and then by presenting a whole bunch of gifts in a long sequence. And then Jacob wrestles a God stand-in, and then gets a new name, Israel, which I mean, we all know of the country of Israel. I mean, I shouldn't say we all know, but I mean, Israel is a country that exists today. And that right there is the origin of its name. Because, Jacob and his descendants end up living in that land sort of spreading out within it eventually. But let me not get too far ahead of myself. Just know that's the origin of it. This whole Jacob getting a new name, Israel, is through this wrestling with a God man. So anyway, that's going to do it for this time. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with others if you want them to see. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages and all that kind of stuff. And of course, leave comments down below all that with any thoughts that you have. So yeah, that's it for now. I really could dig more into the whole Israel thing and some of the significance of what goes on there, but then I'm getting into even more details than what has even been mentioned, so I'm kind of holding back on that for now. So anyway, yeah, that's all I got. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.